to Season 5 of the Hey Girl podcast with your host and my mom, Bethany Needham. This season, we get to hear from some incredible new guests, and we're bringing back some of our faves. Each guest will share their story of running their race in their place, and we hope they inspire you to do the same. If you want more information or to connect with my mom, go follow our new Instagram at HeyGirlGram, friend us on Facebook at HeyGirlPod, or even better, join our brand new Patreon to get bonus materials, hang with my mom, and you get to help Hey Girl continue to grow and reach more people. That's pretty cool. All right, time to grab that seltzer and maybe a tissue box just in case. Here's my mom.
Hey listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Hey Girl podcast. This week, you are in for a treat because we have the sweetest Amanda Jane Cooper in the house. It was so much fun sitting down with Amanda and hearing her story. Y'all, she came to us as a recommendation after someone actually had seen a video she did for the I Am Second organization. If you haven't seen their videos before, you should for sure go check them out. Definitely start with Amanda Jane Cooper's because holy cow, so powerful. And we spent some time, we sat down, I get to hear more of her story. Guys, such a cool journey that she's been on, from Broadway to different acting opportunities, from Disney show, CSI Bones, you name it. Incredible. And I just loved every second of hearing her talk about what it's looked like for her to run her race in her place, how God drew her to himself, just the whole thing. It was amazing. I cannot wait to share it with you. So without further ado, y'all buckle up, grab that seltzer, get that fuzzy blanket. You're not going to want to miss this. Let me introduce you to my new friend, Amanda Jane Cooper. Okay, listeners, I am so excited to be sitting here with a new friend, Miss Amanda Jane Cooper. I almost wanted to say like your married name because we just had this whole conversation, but I'm going to leave it. We're going to give them your professional name because I know that after you share today, they're going to want to go find you on the Instas and all the things. So welcome to Hey Girl, Amanda.
Thank you, Bethany. I feel like the most appropriate thing I should say to you to begin is, hey girl.
Yes. And you did it so well. I wish they could see the like head bob you gave it too.
Hey girl.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so good to be here.
Yeah. And so you actually came as a recommendation through a friend of mine who, I'm hoping I get this right, but I believe she had seen you in your I Am Second video that you did, and then kind of like checked out your story and was like, oh my goodness, you need to have this girl on your podcast. And so I always love the recommendations because it's exciting for me because I'm getting to meet someone new, and it just across the board, they're always such incredible stories that I'm like, oh my goodness, aside from Hey Girl, like I would not get to do this, to sit down and talk to you and just, I don't think we do it enough in life. Just pause and talk about the things that God's done in our lives. So Amanda, this is our time, right? We get to press pause and like slow everything down. And why don't you just take a little while and tell our listeners, well, not a little bit, like a lot about yourself.
Everything. I am it's so funny. Like I never was that into podcasts until the past year, I would say. And like you're talking about pausing and having conversations. I find that's been one of the blessings this year, is just listening to a lot of really fascinating conversations. So I'm really happy to be having this one. And yeah, like Bethany said, my name is Amanda Jane Cooper. 3 names, exciting. I'm originally from just outside Philadelphia, in the Valley Forge area. And yeah, I am a storyteller by vocation and passion, and also feel like so grateful that God has led me to that path in my life. I'm an actor. I was Glinda in Wicked on Broadway for the 15th anniversary. I've toured the country with the show as well. I act on screen sometimes when I'm so blessed to do so. But yeah, I'll start at the beginning. So I grew up just outside Philly, like I said. Was just a really super shy kid, like hiding behind my mom's legs at the grocery store, and just generally terrified of the world. And
I would not have guessed that at all.
Well, hey, God works all things for good, like we were talking about before we press record. So I was just a really shy kid, finding my way. And in 5th grade, it was, I think, mandatory for all the 5th graders to audition for the 5th grade musical. And, growing up, my parents, I'm the oldest of 3, and we would, just as a family, have music on all the time. My dad is way into music. My mom really encouraged us. She was like a fabulous flautist in high school and like drum majorette and whatever. So we had music like around us growing up, and my parents would hear me kind of singing in the car and look at each other, I guess, and say, oh, I think she can actually like carry a little tune. It sounds pretty good. And so when 5th grade came around and there was this opportunity to audition, I just remember being in the dining room and my mom was like, sing out, Amanda, like as I was practicing. And I went in and I ended up getting a role of Steamboat Sal, a talented and lovely gal was her name. And, this music teacher gave me an opportunity. She knew that I was like this really shy kid, but something happened in that little room that day with my song that I sang. And she said, who taught you how to do that? She's got this New Jersey accent. I didn't do it well at all. I'm sorry, Susan. Her name is Susan Messner, Mrs. Messner. She's changed my life. But she takes her glasses down. She's like, who taught you how to do that? And I was like, I don't know. And so anyway, I ended up playing this role, and my whole world opened up. I felt like, I didn't know the word for it at the time, but it was community, like I had friends, and it was exciting to step into the shoes of this character. It like helped me become emboldened, I think, as Amanda, which was pretty cool. And just the fun and the joy of it, and feeling like, oh, I have this like really matters to me. I love this. And also finding friends was awesome. So throughout middle school and high school, I went to public high school called Great Valley High School. Shout out. And we had a fabulous, fabulous director of the drama program there, Lisa Eaton, who is just, oh my goodness, just, also changed my life by giving me opportunities to embark on different roles. And really, I think she really saw something in me and kind of drew it out with like how she directed and how she encouraged me. So I'm super thankful for that. And yeah, just my parents kind of championing me along the way. I was also, nerd alert, and I say that with love, I was also very into marching band.
You were.
That's right. Okay. I started playing clarinet when I was in 3rd grade and ended up in the marching band for freshman, sophomore, and junior year of high school. Very fun. And just doing different things in high school, like student council, was way into that as well. But the thing I most loved was theater. And in high school, I grew up we went to church on Sundays, and it was a great community. But I think as a kid, I didn't really have like I got it a little. I was like, okay, there's God and he loves us. But I didn't really kind of absorb what that meant for my actual life, and like how God actually invites us to freedom and newness through his forgiveness. Like that did not compute like really as a kid. So, I liked going to church, but it wasn't necessarily, I guess, the like the soil, I guess, the proverbial, like we talked about in scripture, talks about like what soil the seeds kind of fall on. And it took me a while to get to that place. So all that to say, in high school, I sort of definitely made choices that I wish I didn't, and started, I think, as a performer, you literally are applauded. Yeah. Like with actual hands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so strange, I think, for a kid to kind of take on that reward system. And just in our culture, there's so many things vying for our attention and telling us like what makes us pretty, what makes us valuable, what's cool, what's makes you worthy, and all of that stuff. So I didn't even know it, but there was like a war for my attention. And I mean, I definitely put my eggs in the basket of like, if I am successful, that is my purpose, is to be successful. And so that started kind of becoming my God a bit. I feel like I'm just telling my whole, is this all right to just
keep? No, okay, great. You're doing great.
I'm like, I need to let Bethany also ask me some questions. I'm just giving you like every detail.
I'm just like soaking it in.
I know. Thank you to the listeners who are like still with me. Thank you. But yeah, like I started kind of, success was my God. And then also, again, from like just different narratives of society and culture, like different ways that I would interact in relationships and things I was okay with, and it was just an interesting time. I didn't feel like lost at all in high school. I was very much like, oh yeah, killing it, And then when I got to college, so this is like sort of the next chapter, I was so grateful to get into my dream school of Carnegie Mellon University, which is just, oh my goodness, just a fabulous acting musical theater program. And it was a dream come true, really small class size, just amazing professors. And I basically was in a conservatory program. I was in I like to say I was in a leotard for 4 years, like along with my other classmates. And it was awesome. Like I learned so much. I incubated as this budding artist and, learned technique and learned story and movement and dance and voice and dialects and accents and history of theater and all this. It was so, so good. But I went in with the mentality really underneath. I wasn't saying it out loud, but like underneath my ticker was very much like, I must succeed. Like I must. Very concerned with my image, By that time, just again, sort of like wandering in this direction of kind of trying to fill my identity with things like relationships, who thinks I'm attractive, how does my body look? And it was in college, really where it was the first time I had this awareness of like, I guess it didn't even start as comparison, I don't think. It just was this thing inside me where I suddenly felt like, oh, there's a bar and I have to like meet it. Just as a warning for any listeners, I don't know if this would be triggering for anybody, but I did begin to struggle with an eating disorder that began as bulimia and turned into binging and starving for several years. That was not something that I ever like really struggled with like in high school. So it just felt like, wait, where is this coming from? Yeah, that's my freshman year of college was when those struggles began. And that was just a rhythm that became like my normal. Like it became a way to deal with pain. It became a way to sort of fulfill this like self-hating, darkness that was lingering inside me that I didn't necessarily know was that. It just became my way of like numbing out. I just did not know where to take my fear, my pain, my insecurity, all of that. And like I said in my second video, it was like almost the pain of changing at that time was like, I was just more comfortable being in the pain and the rhythm of that I knew. And I put myself in a lot of really unhealthy, dangerous situations in order to kind of get this fix. I was so embarrassed by it. I was like, I don't want anybody to know that like I'm, it's embarrassing. Like I just was so embarrassed. I didn't want to be doing it, but I felt like it was just such a compulsion.
I'm interested. You said when you were in high school that like you kind of success, that's what you decided, like this is the thing. Do you think in high school that you had kind of defined that for yourself yet? Because as you're like talking into going into college, it's almost like, I don't know if it felt like the bar moved on you or all of a sudden like something shifted where, and I don't know that there's an answer to it. I was just like, I wonder, at 15, 16 years old, what was your ultimate, like, if this, because usually we said it right. It's like, if I do this,
Yeah.
I have, like, that's it.
Right. That's such a good question. I think it was around 15 or 16 that I was like, oh, I actually think I want to pursue storytelling, acting as a life, a profession. And definitely, getting in, I really wanted to get into Carnegie, and that was such a dream come true. I think that was like a kind of maybe a bar or a hope that I set for myself. I had also seen Wicked twice when I was in high school. I was ninth grade, I think, when it came out. And our drama guild went all together up to New York. It was amazing. And it was truly one of the catalytic moments. Is that a word? Catalytic?
It is now.
It is. Thank you.
Welcome to Bananagrams.
That's right. We're just going for it. And that was a moment I saw Kristen Chenoweth on stage and I was like, oh, she is so captivating. And I saw some similarities between us just in like kind of the way we look and like our essence and stuff. And it gave me this sort of confidence to be like, oh, there would actually be like a thing I could do on this Broadway, Yeah. And so, yeah, that definitely was like, oh goodness, I wanted to play Glinda so much. I don't know. I think when I got to college, it was probably a little different because I was suddenly in this community of, I guess I was in like a, I don't want to say small pond, people use that kind of phrase. And it's not necessarily that, but you just go into this very intense place where like everybody that you're around also loves what you do just as much. And I also was like on my own for the first time. I think that just had a lot to do with it, just the transition and being like, what is life? And I do think comparison started to creep into my mind more so than it had in high school, where I feel like I just kind of had this almost blindness to that.
Yeah. Or the bar was, because just how you're describing this sort of gives me this aha moment of, it makes sense when you're in high school, like not everybody around you is pursuing, not everyone around you is dreaming of being Glinda, on Broadway. So it's almost like you're surrounded by people with their own bars. And then you get to this school and all of a sudden the entire student body is standing next to you and everybody's going after the same bar. And there's only so much space on that bar.
Yeah, maybe that was part of it. Yeah. And I think also like I did start actually, I was very grateful to, I booked my first actual professional acting gig was in a movie called Smart People with Sarah Jessica Parker, Thomas Hayden Church. And I got this like role. I think I was there for like a day on set. But I got this role in my freshman year. And I don't know if I just put more pressure on myself because I'm like, oh, we're doing this now, like I must have this shape, and also as women, like our bodies change significantly, even from high school to college, like those changes, I think also contributed because I was like, oh, it's okay. It's a little different now. So that, like I said, that was sort of this pattern and undercurrent like all throughout college, unfortunately. And I did see a counselor at the time, which was helpful. But it wasn't until years later that I really found healing. And that was just really because the Lord did it. And so, yeah, while I was in college, it still is an amazing experience. Like I still learned so much. I loved it and have some great memories from there, but I definitely was lacking in character. I really was. I hurt not only myself, but others, I really was, I didn't really know what it meant to walk in the light of like putting other people before yourself, and caring for the emotional well-being of not just like me, like getting my needs met, but also just like, how do I walk in integrity and honor people, really. Like I said, it was also like a wonderful experience at the same time. Like I do think I can see God's hand, on it, protecting me and also like giving me these different opportunities. And at the time was definitely not really walking with God. But interestingly, I did find a couple of journal excerpts where I do talk about God. So I knew that I was like sort of thinking about it. But I had this amazing opportunity to meet the legendary Stephen Schwartz. And for those of you who are listening, Stephen Schwartz is just one of Broadway's most brilliant composers. He wrote Wicked. And if you've ever heard that soundtrack, you know that it is just a spectacular body of work. It is so beautiful. He also wrote Pippin and Godspell and many other pieces. He was visiting Carnegie Mellon because he is also an alum of the school. He was doing a master class, and I was, I think, a sophomore, and I was asked to sing Popular for him. And Bethany, was so excited. I was so excited to do this because I was like, this is the man who's responsible for like creating.
Yeah.
Basically. And so I sang Popular for him, and he saw something in me, and I will be so grateful to him. I mean, I am so grateful to him for seeing something in me. He said, I think you might play Glinda one day. I want you to send your materials, your headshot, your resume to Telsey, the casting office in New York. And I just about passed out because I was like, I can't believe this sentence has been said and what? So I was a major nerd. I sent my headshot and my resume. Don't worry. Also a cover letter printed on pink paper where I drew hearts and stars. Also, pretty sure I put glitter in the envelope. I'm not even kidding. I was like so maxed out on this. Like, you
are Elle from.
It does sound more like Elle than anything. I know. So I sent this thing off, and my first audition for the show was April of my senior year. I didn't book it right then. It was a couple months later in October. I started like some more auditions, and what generally happens is for those who are kind of new to the acting world is generally when you start like in your first initial audition, it's usually with casting, and then with each callback, there's an increased number of people behind the table. So more people from the creative team, people from the producing side, etc. And so I think I went in about 5 times, and each time with an increased, number of people who are like watching you do this audition. And it was just, I was so grateful that in January of 2011, which is crazy because that's 10 years ago, I got the call to be Glinda on the first national tour of Wicked. It was such a dream come true. I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now. And I got to go live this dream at 22. And man, it was such a crazy time because it was like, what? How am I be okay? Like, let's go. And I truly thought, like I had said, I had made success my God. So Bethany, there's all this like hidden stuff that's going on where I am like very much delving into the world of like just all these different things. And I shared on my I Am Second, you can see just the various things that I was struggling with, shoplifting, like promiscuity, all this stuff underneath, in this sort of hidden thing. But on the surface, I had everything. I was like, okay, great. I got this thing. It's going to solve the rest of everything, all my eating stuff, all my compulsions, whatever. And it did not because like a job coming into your life, I didn't know this at 22, but that does not like suddenly solve everything. It's that inner work that's needed. And really, I needed God, which I didn't know at the time. So I was on tour for 8 months. I performed at the Kennedy Center for then First Lady Michelle Obama, just went on, all these adventures. It was just wearing that big 20-pound sequin dress with like a crown filled with Swarovski crystals and getting to just bounce around and sing Popular and bring as much emotional truth that I could. So I was on tour for about 8 months, and then I booked it to Los Angeles because I was still very much struggling in my personal life. And I was like, okay, I need to just like start new basically. And I'd always kind of felt this pull towards Los Angeles. So cut to that chapter. I was there for 4 years. And in the first couple months, it was great professionally, but personally I am sad for the Amanda who went through what she did and like made the choices that she did. But God, that's what we got to say, because he's a rescuer. So I went through some really, really dark months, but professionally things were going great. I booked my first ever TV show out there. I was like testing for pilots and in rooms with people who I was like, oh my gosh, I like watched you growing up. And like, this is crazy. We're like colleagues, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
So professionally it was really cool, kind of hit the ground running.
Were there people in your life? Like, I'm just trying to imagine, because I know you said these were things that you were trying to keep, like you mentioned being like ashamed of these things. You didn't want people knowing. Was there anyone in your life that knew what was going on? Or was it really like you felt like you had these two identities, the upfront professional, got it all together,
right,
living my dream, and then this sort of, closet, door shut, I don't want you to see in here.
Right. Definitely a lot of hiding. I mean, there were people who knew pieces, but there was nobody who knew everything. I would sort of sparse it out, I had some people who were keyed in, and then a lot of it was just completely a secret. And to be honest with you, I didn't even recognize that some of my behaviors were even like, I guess I knew they were destructive, but some of them I was kind of like, well, this is what everybody's kind of doing, like I would tell myself that. And then finally I got so exhausted by it, and I got so caught up in the destruction of it that I was like, oh, actually, I don't think I want to do this anymore. That is a good question. And unfortunately, not a lot of this was in the light at all until I was at a Hollywood wrap party, which is a party that happens at the end of a season, once you wrap the season. And it was there that I met this woman named Alice Isaac, who actually was our wedding coordinator to this day. It's been, we met in 2012. Anyway, I'm at this party and I see this woman. We just start talking, and Bethany, something, I mean, it was, now I can see like, oh, that was like the actual Lord, drawing me to himself through her. Like, there was just something about her where I was like, I'm going to tell her everything. And I just stood there in this bar and told her everything for like 45 minutes. Later, she told me, like a year later, she was like, the Lord told me not to lose track of you that night. Alice is just really, really, really gifted. She's really faithful. She just loved me like sort of, she's just this stranger, right? Who came into my life and was just like, what do you need? I want to serve you. Let me love you. Here's wisdom. Would you like it? And I got to see this like joy in her life. And I was like, wow, there is something kind of like undeniable here that I feel like you are not thirsty. And I very much am. And so, I got connected to a church community kind of through her, started going. I was like, okay, what do I believe? But I started, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure listeners who also I'm sure that somebody out there feels this too, but it was almost like my soul just knew. I don't want to trivialize it by being like, oh, it fit like a glove. It's much more profound than that, but something in my soul was like, this Jesus is what I have, what I think I need. And oh, wow, and just learning about brokenness in the world and why God would need to send Jesus, and why we would need to be forgiven, why we would need to be reconciled to God, like all these things, that I'd never really thought about before. And I just experienced such love from this community, and just really God would send me signs and moments where you're like, this is not an accident. This is orchestrated. Just these beautiful moments. And so, I got baptized in July of 2013. And I am telling you that the Lord healed me so he he healed me and filled me with such passion. And I think he filled me with like, you are with my identity as his. And it made me love him and myself better, where I was like, oh, you care about me, God. I need to also care, but in a loving way, not in like a selfish, like I just care about myself, you know? Man, I just like all the promiscuity, the ways that I was acting out, seeking affirmation from different people, like taking different substances, whatever. Like that was literally just so rapidly healed in a crazy profound way. And same thing with my eating disorder, which did take longer to heal, but I am so grateful to say that I am free. My relationship to food is like no longer one of bondage, and I can just love my body and serve it and like honor my body, you know, and not have that be the outlet for my pain, you know. So I'm just so grateful for meeting her and for God's kindness, like leading me to himself. My friend Annie says, Annie F. Downs, you know her? She's amazing. She goes, the Lord saved me once, but he rescues me every day. And I am like, amen. That is so true. And I think that's, I don't know, I just grew to have a passion to just share him, because I was like, guys, I was walking this, there's a better life, you know, available to us. And so that was really cool to just start living a new life in LA and, you know, still pursuing the TV and film thing, being on set, all that stuff, but like really growing and being part of small groups and like studying scriptures and like wrestling with things and having intentional friendships and serving at church and like just having a totally different life than I had ever experienced. I was given the opportunity. The Lord just like lined things up that about 4 years after I had departed from the first national tour, I got invited to be Glinda on the second national, where I got to float by bubble. For those of you who haven't seen, Glinda floats down into Oz, 40 feet high. She floats down into an actual like bubble that comes from the ceiling. It's the most epic entrance ever, but I got to float by bubble for 16 months, which was twice the amount of time that I had been on the first national. And the place, even as an artist, the place that I was creating from was not this kind of gripped, like, fear, like, okay, just do, you know, I was actually in a place of like joy. I was like, okay, this is my job. It is awesome. I am so grateful to be here. And it doesn't determine like whether I'm lovable, you know? So I was able to like, I feel like just be very much more other-minded, you know, and have really fascinating conversations. It was like really sweet, where I feel like God would just like highlight people to me in these different cities, and I would just meet all these different women and have conversations and just some wild stories of just really, really cool stuff. I think I was able to be way more present for my castmates and, you know, really be just looking at the whole experience with a completely different lens. And then I got the call in, oh gosh, when was it? I got the call to make my Broadway debut. I think it was March of 2017 to make my debut that July. I was still on tour. I was like in my last city on tour. And when I got that official offer, and I mean, I just completely exploded in weeping, because God had just redeemed so much and given me, you know, the scripture of like, he will restore the years from the locusts, and that verse. And I was like, I don't deserve this, God, you know, like, but you're so like, thank you for giving me good gifts and for making a way and fighting for me and kicking down every, like the Corey Asbury, you know, reckless love. That bridge always gets me, like, there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up coming after me. There's no, there's no wall you won't kick down or lie you won't tear down coming after me. And he did that for me. And I was like, I can't believe this. Like, you know, just that 14-year-old girl who just sat in that audience and wanted that and thought that that was like the answer. But I got to like experience it as the gift that it is. And I so believe in the story of the show, you know, about, oh gosh, there's so many beautiful themes that actually quite parallel my own experience, which is kind of cool, you know, because Glenda starts as a character who just really doesn't mind too much about anybody except herself, you know, and then through a transformational relationship with her best friend Elphaba, like she is changed for good. And I feel like there's just such parallels, and I'm just very humbled to have had that experience. It was beautiful, and I got to be a part of the 15th anniversary and perform with Kristen and Adina on NBC to celebrate that, and like film the new commercial that was in Times Square, and like just these exceedingly abundantly like crazy blessings. And I don't know, just I get emotional about it because it's been a long road, you know, and so I'm really thankful that I got to experience what I did, and also missing theater immensely right now as we're in COVID. But
I love the redemptive part, Jesus and his plan of redemption and how that shows up in big and small ways in our lives. But man, for you to get your, you know, I love how you differentiated what you thought was the answer to what you were striving for, right? And you're there and you have it, but there's this like complete emptiness and all of this sin and darkness and things going on. But then the full circle of you find the answer, you come to know Jesus, you know, your life's transformed.
Yeah.
And then you get to go back and rewalk that road. And that's not always the story, but what an incredible it's almost like you walked an entire road in darkness and then you got to do it in the light. And think about that when you arrive somewhere, like I've done this on vacation, you get there at nighttime and you're just like, you're tired, you're in the journey, whatever. And then you wake up the next morning and just realize the beauty that was around you the whole time. Like that's almost what I imagine. Like you just got to see the whole thing through completely different lens and experience.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a good parallel. Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's true.
I know because you hinted at it. There's another sort of cool part of your story that is a little more current. And I would say, I think people who have wrestled with things in their past that are relational in nature, like this is redemption in terms of relationally, like what a beautiful thing. So I am dying to know about I was going to say boy, but that sounds like you have a small child. So tell us about this man.
Hey, the podcast is called Hey Girl, so he could be my hey boy. You know what
Yes.
No, but he's very much a man. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Talk about redemption. I mean, it's honestly only the Lord, because I'm telling you, I was so lost, and just the ways that he orchestrated us meetings. Where do I start? Just for context, for those who are listening, we just got married in April of 2020. And if you remember, that was really the beginning of what became a very, you know, trying year. But basically, yeah. So let me start at the beginning. There's just such relational redemption. I feel like God, again, kind of like reoriented my view of even myself, and also like what I wanted in marriage, and like how I thought about what the marriage is for, and like what the kind of like man and the character that I would like want to have in a spouse. And then like also like, okay, what is this character that is in me, and, you know, working all that stuff out. And always a work in progress. Let me say that. But yeah, I'm so grateful to basically also just come to this realization, like, you know what? I want to wait now until marriage to live with my husband and be with my husband in all of those ways. Gosh, I'm so glad that I am just grateful for that kind of path turn, you know, that God kind of took me on, and the ways that he protected my heart in that. So anyway, Andrew is my husband's name. We met
too.
Oh, no way. Okay. You know what's funny? Andrew means manly. So it's really funny that you said boy, because it's like their name means manly.
They're definitely manly.
So manly. And I was coming, so like I said, I spent 4 years in Los Angeles and then went on tour for 16 months, came to New York, was here doing the show for 17. And in, I think, October of 2018, I had been living here, doing the show, getting into the rhythm. And for those who don't know, when you do a Broadway show or touring production, you're doing 8 shows a week, 6 days a week. And some of those are very stacked all together. Sometimes you do what's called a 5-show weekend, where you're basically doing 5 shows within 60 hours. And it's Friday and then 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And so I was just kind of getting the rhythm back of like, okay, I'm in New York. This is my like New York reprise. How do I live here? And then also like take care of my body, take care of my voice, be steaming every single night. And for those of you who don't know, that's like breathing in literal steam to coat your vocal cords, because essentially when you're on stage, like doing a show, you're kind of like a stage athlete, where just like a baseball player would have to rest their muscles, we also have to do that, but for our voices and also our muscles too, but specifically with the voice. So you got to get a lot of sleep, you got to do all this stuff. So I was kind of getting my rhythm, went to a church that I had heard of through my other faith community in LA. And I walk up and I see this guy greeting. And meanwhile, I was just like, kind of like you say on this show, I was kind of like running my race in my place. I was like, God, I am believing you for a wonderful husband. I really want this in my life, God. I would pray for him. I made a whole husband list. You better believe it. I was like praying, me and my girlfriends, just praying for each other's future husbands. But I like finally was in a place where I wasn't like just forever scanning the horizon of like, who is it going to be? So I don't know. It was kind of a sweet place that I was in when I met Andrew, and we met. He said, oh, he was greeting at the door. He said, oh, hi, I'm Andrew. I said, oh, hi, I'm Amanda. Nice to meet you. And we just literally exchanged hellos for like 3 weeks in a row. He tells the story better than me sometimes, because he's like, yeah, there's this girl who came in with like a lot of makeup on her face and chest glitter because it was left over from the show. And I was like rushing to get to church. I was like, I don't have time to take all of this off completely. And so he was like, why is this girl wearing so much makeup? And like, why does she have a glitter on her? So anyway, we said hi for like 3 weeks in a row, and then our schedule changed back to 5-show weekends. I took a break from in-person church, was doing just virtual, and then came back in March of 2018. Sorry. So I met him October 17 and then re-met him March 18, and he remembered my name. I said, oh, Andrew, right? And he's like, yeah, Amanda. And we just connected, and I guess, we kind of became like church door pals. Like we would like each week talk about more and more stuff about life and whatever. And he's like, how do I get on her radar? So he's coming home from a business dinner one night, and he's driving up in a cab, and the cab accidentally turns on 51st Street, which was the street of my stage door. He goes, stop the cab, please. It's literally the time where everybody's like lining up outside to say hello after the show. He gets out of the cab. He's like, guess I'll wait at the end of this line. And I literally, he tells it better than me, but like he opened the cab door, and literally in that moment, I walked out of the stage door, like a movie moment to him. I didn't see him though. So he sees me. He's like, is she going to think I'm like workplace, like inappropriate, yes, like at her work, like whatever. But he waited at the end of the line. I saw him. He's in a suit, which is like, oh, he was looking so handsome. I said, Andrew. And that was really the catalyst for us. I was like, oh, you, okay. Yes. And so our first date was, I think maybe 10 days later, we worked it out and went out, and, yeah. And then we were engaged in July of 2019, and our wedding was supposed to be April 25th, 2020. We all know how, unfortunately, everything changed in March. So I was actually doing some concerts in Israel. The last travel that I did before the pandemic was literally, I was in Israel, which was so amazing. Bethany, oh my gosh. And it was so strange though, because by that time, COVID was like, the rumblings of it were very much around. And so we were walking in Old City Jerusalem with like nobody else around. We went to the Sea of Galilee, like we were the only boat out because everybody had canceled their trip. But we had already been there for like a week, and then things started unfolding. Anyway, half my concerts were canceled, whatever, all that stuff. And we're flying back to the United States, and I had prayed that our wedding would just bring glory to God, and that like his story would just be like told through our wedding, and that people would just like feel his presence like through our wedding, and just that it would be just a really just beautiful kind of, time. And I'm sitting on the plane, and the reality hits me of like, what if I'm not going to be able to like walk down the aisle? What if I'm not going to be able to like, are we gonna have to cancel this? And I just had a moment with the Lord, and we landed on March 15th. And it was this whole thing where like Andrew, the plan was like for him to move into the apartment first. And then once we got married, I would move in. But everybody was beginning to quarantine, and we're like, what do we do? That led us to basically one day on March 18th, we were like, should we go to the courthouse just in case we cannot escape New York City to go get married in Pennsylvania? And we said, okay, let's just go. We didn't want to take the subway because of safety, whatever, or health, and we took city bikes. We biked 6 miles down to the courthouse. We went in, we said, hi, we'd like a license. And we said, if we get married, like, and we send our paperwork in, what if the courts close? And like, would we still be considered legally married? They said, no. They said, if we close, somebody has to process your paperwork. And if we close and we can't process it, then you're not legally married. And we were like, shoot, what do we do? They said, well, you could ask the judge to waive the 24-hour waiting period, and you could get married today. And we were like, what? And so we called our families, and we're like, and they were like, do it. Absolutely. Please do it. They were both like, please do it. So we were like, we looked at each other like, okay. We kind of pled our case with the judge, and he let us go ahead and get married in a very quick ceremony. And it was just wild. And so we basically, oh gosh, there's just so many little details. We didn't even have a witness. We had to like ask this random sweet stranger to be our witness, because we didn't know we were getting married that day. We're like, hi ma'am, could you like come be our witness? It was so crazy. And so we get technically legally married, but we decided, you know what? We really wanted to have this in the context of community. We wanted to like have an actual ceremony where we're like really worship and praying. So we were technically married, but like we waited to do the rings and like consider each other man and wife and like all that comes along with that. We waited until this Zoom ceremony that we did on a rooftop. Praise the Lord. The weather held out. And Alice Isaac, literally the one I talked about before, who changed my life, and coordinated it from like 3,000 miles away. Our photographer, Alexandra Nerthen of ALN Images, literally Zoom, like took the photos through Zoom on her really nice camera. That's crazy. And they came out so beautiful. And yeah, we had like this step ladder and like an iPad and a laptop. iPad was like the guest. The laptop was our pastor, and then our really good friends who happen to also live in the building where our first apartment is together were there with us as well. They were the only people there with us. It was their family, and it was just so crazy. And my dad walked me down the aisle on FaceTime, and we ultimately decided, we were like, because we were waiting to move in, because we were waiting for all these things, the option of like, oh, let's just wait another year was just not, it just didn't, we weren't sure how long this thing was going to last. And we're like, let's just start our lives together. And everybody was fully supportive. My dad walked me down the aisle on FaceTime. We did my sister, who at the time was living in Brooklyn, sent this gorgeous bouquet, like a legit bridal bouquet from this Gotham florists, and a boutonniere for Andrew, which was just so, in the pictures, it looks beautiful. And I walked down the aisle, we did music on like a Bluetooth speaker, and then we worshiped and we took communion and we did the rings and we did personalized vows. So that's our crazy story. It was a beautiful thing to get to. I mean, there was a lot to grieve in it, of course, because like, I never imagined that I would be married without my parents, especially there, and that was hard, not to be around like all of our loved ones, but he really has purposed it. And we got to tell our story in the New York Times and just different places where we've just got to reflect on, like, even though everything about it was so unexpected, like how many unexpected actual blessings there were in the process. And we're just so grateful, especially in this time of perspective where so many people are struggling and suffering. It's like, we're just so grateful to have each other. But yeah, it'll be a story to tell for a long time.
Seriously. Oh my goodness. Amanda, I mean, so many things in your story that I love and appreciate. Obviously the redemptive, just hearing all these pieces of redemption, but even just, the reminder how God places people in our lives for such a time as this.
Yeah.
For us to remember that he uses us in other people's lives, and, why it's important. I think of your teachers growing up, like why it's important to speak life over people and call out gifts or talents, or because I'm just thinking how cool. He's a super shy kid, right? Like nobody's pulling you out to be like, you know what, you should be on Broadway. It was this like,
right,
over time, people seeing something and sort of pulling that out, and just, yeah, it's incredible. So I know we're going to have to wrap up soon, but before we wrap up, I want to know, you've played Glenda on Broadway. Do you have any other out there dreams of, if I could play another role, this would be the one?
Oh my gosh. I feel like that it's always changing. I feel like, I would love to originate something where that doesn't even exist yet. I would love to be part of a process where I'm in it kind of from the ground up. I think that would be incredible. I love stories that combine, like, I just love a comedy role. It's so fun. And something that's truthy. I mean, it's crazy, like, actually how perfect Glinda is for like everything an actor would love and want to do. It's like everything from comedy to her more dramatic side. So anyway, I will say I've played Little Red Riding Hood in Into the Woods before in college, but I would love to explore her again as in this season of life. I love that musical so much. Stephen Sondheim is just incredible. So I'm gonna go with Little Red or originating something.
I love it. I'm gonna be watching for Little Red Riding Hood or a brand new show.
Or a brand new show. Let's go. I also love I love working on TV and film. I just shot an episode of SVU, and Mariska Hargitay, who is the star of that show, had come to see us in Wicked 2 years prior. And it was this wild night where she like called Liam Neeson on her cell phone on speakerphone to like talk to our then Elphaba. And it was just wild. So, and just seeing the fingerprints, all over that, getting to be on set during COVID and just exploring. I just love exploring different characters. So yeah. And if that's through on stage or if that's in a different medium, we'll see. I'm excited for whatever future holds.
I'm excited to continue just to even follow your story, because here's the reality, right? We're telling a story up into this point, but God's not done. He's still writing. He's still so.
Yeah.
So thank you for being willing to share with us.